I believe. Cholim Beis. Now, I must tell you, I'm not particularly well prepared tonight because of the tightness, but let's see how well we can do. Which easy Gemara, so it shouldn't be such a problem. This is about halfway down the page. It's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 lines on the top. Everybody see it? Ish Ploni? Ish Ploni v'chol shem sheyesh lo. So you write and get so-and-so on any name that he has. Now, today we have all sorts of permutations, but essentially we have the same minhag today. We write so-and-so and any name which he has. Now, why do we do this? Let's imagine the following case. Dabat Shmei Reuven, his name was Reuven. Vavik Shmei Shimon, but he calls himself Shimon. Is that Meshugana? His name is Reuven, right? Calls himself Shimon, right? So nevertheless, the truth is, in halacha, it's very easy to change your name. It's a very, very simple procedure. You just ask everybody to call you by a new name, and you can change your old name. You're not bound to the name with which you're born, contrary to popular opinion. But, so like if you had a name like Gimple, and you wanted to change it to something more acceptable, so then you certainly allowed to do so. Okay?
To Macy.
So, each side of Chol Shem Sheish Lo Agatzcha. The Avish Shmei Reuven, Ba'apik Shmei Shimon, and his name is Reuven. He calls himself Shimon. So how do we? If you wrote Shimon, right? So you wrote if we were saying again Ish Ploni, meaning Shimon, and any name that he has, but he's still not Reuven, right? So how do we know that he's not? I should say it like this: if we wrote Reuven in the get, and his name, he called himself Shimon, so he says Reuven, and it says Reuven, any name that he has, we're not really covering all bases because we don't know who this individual is. Is it this guy Reuven or is it this guy Shimon? Who are we talking about? So therefore, he has to write. It's a critical. I don't know if I'm expressing the problem well enough, but when you see the answer, you'll understand the problem better. Elo ani ploni v'chol shem sheyesh li. He has to write to get in the first tense. In other words, if you wrote to get in the third tense, it'd be a problem. Because then, we don't know that it's he himself expressing it because this might not be his most legitimate name. But if it says in the get, I am doing this, so then the I, the personal pronoun, immediately identifies the individual who's doing it as having made the get. And then the name almost becomes a secondary aspect to the I. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Yeah. In other words, initially we just relied on the name, so maybe this is not the right name, and maybe therefore the get is not good. But once it says I, so then the I am being megarish, and the name is just a pronoun almost, or an adjective. Actually, I'm sorry, not a pronoun. It's an adjective to describe what kind of pronoun we're talking about. It's I, the guy who's called Reuven. Yes.
You have to say Reuven ben Yaakov.
Yeah, well, we're assuming that. Yeah, of course. He has to have his father's name too.
So even if he calls himself Shimon.
Yeah, but then Reuven ben Yaakov, Shimon ben Yaakov. Who knows what Yaakov it is? Yaakov is a very generic name. The father's name can also be generic. I also have changed the name. That's just begs the question a little bit further. Yeah.
It doesn't really. It's like you can't say just I because people won't know who the I is.
Right. No, I'm asking. But the truth is, it's not necessarily.
You can't really call him the adjective.
Right. Right, but that's in the I, Reuven. And then it becomes the I and Reuven or any other name that I have. So then the critical component is the I'm being megarish, not the individual is being megarish, not the name is being megarish.
Yeah, but we don't know who I is.
That's true, that's his question. Right, but so then we identify the I through the name. But then the name becomes the identifying factor, not the part of the get which is being megarish. The ani is being megarish. We do. But maybe it's also called Levi. Maybe it's also called Levi. So which one's being megarish? Personality number 1, personality 2, personality number 3. If you say ani, but ani solves that whole problem. Because then it's the I being megarish. Ani. Yes. I was called Reuven. That's right. Okay? You understand it. You don't like it. You don't have to like it. You just have to understand it. Okay? So that's the general principle here. That's right.
A lot of us like that.
Beyond that, they said, Hayulo shtei nashim. He had two wives. Achas Yehuda, Achas Golia. One in Yehuda, one in Golia. V'lo shnei shtei name. Of course, he has two names as well, right? Yehuda, he's one name number one, and Golia is name number two. And I probably each wife
doesn't know.
Each wife does not know about the other name and the other identity, right? So shtei nashim, Achas Yehuda, Achas Begolia. V'lo shtei shemus, and he's got two names, Achas Yehuda, Achas Golia. Because of Zesh now, if you wrote it backwards, is in trouble. Because of Zesh Yehuda, Lagari Zesh Begolia, Zusha Begolia. If you wrote the name which he uses in Yehuda to be Megara, to divorce the one in Golia. And the Shagolia and the name used in Golia, Gari Zusha Yehuda, ain't a Megresh. It's not good. So that's a problem, right? He always has to write the name which is being used in that relationship. It's a fascinating concept. For each marriage has its own name which he has to use in order to customize that divorce. So Masnisa, this Bryce that indicates to us, I'm not sure why we have to reiterate it. This Bryce is pretty straightforward. But it's either Shoyam Yehuda because of a Garish Begolia.
He's also called. He also says, "I go." He's called whatever.
Well, these are not names; these are locations, right? Yehuda and Golia are not names; those are countries. Yehuda is the southern part of Eretz Yisrael, Golia is the northern part. And he had one name used in Yehuda, another name used in Golia, and one wife in Yehuda, another wife in Golia.
Fine, so he has to use both.
Well, here's
Say that I
no. If he uses Golil name on his Golil wife, is okay. If he uses Yehuda name on his Yehuda wife, is okay. If he uses Yehuda name on his Golil wife or his Golil name on the Yehuda wife, then he's out of he's doing bad.
But shouldn't he have to do the?
He should lechatchila. The lechatchila, he should write all his names, maskim. But let's say he didn't, right? That's the Gemara is really not talking about lechatchila. This is we're going to say that in a minute. We're going to get to lechatchila. Right now, we're talking about kind of b'diavad. So Masisa, this price is Sher Yehuda. It wasn't from Yehuda because of Garish Migol and wrote to be divorced in Gol, or vice versa. Migol it was in Gol because of Garish Yehuda. He wrote to divorce in Yehuda. Abel Imayom Yumi Yehuda because of the Garish Yehuda. But if he was in Yehuda, I don't know why we're reiterating this. It's very punched from the Brisa itself, but we're reiterating the lesson of the Brisa. Imayom Yehuda because of Garish Yehuda. Migol because of Garish Migol. If you're divorcing in the right country with the right name, I raise him Gresh. It's a valid girshin. Amar Rabba. Now Rabba said, "Ilu bitchila." However, lechatchila, preferentially, tzarich lomar. You have to write ani ploni shemi Yehuda in kol shem sheyesh li bagolia. Right? That's the right. I ploni so and so Yehuda with every name which I have in the go. So that's what you want us to do, right? Okay. The question is here, which wife is being Megarish? So hold on, Amudi Yerushalmi on the bottom. Is the Iker name which he writes in the get, when he has the names, does he write the Iker name as a place where he's based on the place where the get's being written, or where the get is going to be delivered? Because it could be either one, right? Because the get might be written in Yehuda to be delivered in Golil, or written in Yehuda, in Golil to be delivered in Yehuda. So in that case, which name is the primary name, and which name do we just put under or the kol shum? Lamaisa, what? I would think actually place it's being written because that's where the Iker Adis takes place. Lamaisa, I wanted to say that nowadays we write, it's not here in the.
What's the point of writing all the names?
Identification.
So the people who are being named know who it is.
That's true. That's very right on
So
me.
the wife knows who it is.
That's very right on me. That's exactly the point.
But I'm saying the Iker name should be where it's delivered to.
What?
The Iker name should be where it's delivered to. That's what I think.
Okay, so there's certainly people who hold like you, right? Okay. So amen. So says the Gemara. Amar, where are we up to? So Amar Rabbi, now, if it was somewhere else, Megarish Leizish Yirtz, that he can use either name. In other words, he's in a third place. He's being Megarish from Bavel. So then it doesn't matter which name he uses. Any name he uses, they're equally good or equally bad. And then he's nowadays, again, as I was about to say before, we write all the names. right? Any name that he has, we write in the get. We write Hebrew names, English names. We use different terms. We write the miskare or the mechunam. Hamechuna, the miskare is for another Hebrew name which he has. Hamechuna is for another English name which he has. But Lamaisa, we write all the names into the get nowadays. Okay? Amar Rabbi Yosef, if we know whatever names to know about. Amar Rabbi Yosef said, that Amar Lisha Avar. That which we said, it's sufficient to have one name. It's Lisha Avar. But Chatchila, Tzarech Lamabad, but the Chatchila you have to write Lamabad Kodat Rabili. Again, the words repeating itself. The Chatchila you have to like Rabili and write whatever names you possibly can think of. Rabbi Ahmed says, if he's got yet a third name, he's got to mention all three names, as I mentioned, we do today. We learned over there. Yeah, l'chatchila. No, it sounds like only l'chatchila. I think only l'chatchila. Rabbi Yavin said, if he's got, I just read that, sorry. Tavati, let's over there. We write again for a man, even though his wife is not with him. The shover isha, and we write a receipt for a woman, even though her husband is not with her. Okay? So again, we write again for a man, even though his wife is not with him. In other words, he tells us the name. He says, write again for Spritzer, my wife. So we assume he's telling the truth that Spritzer is his wife, and you write him again, right? And if a woman comes and says, write a receipt for a ksuva for Yanko, my husband. So even though her husband's not with her, we write receipt because we assume that that's the name of her husband, right? A receipt when she receives a ksuva. Not a get. On a ksuva, she has to write a receipt. Uvad sheyeh makira. As long as you know that that the husband had such a wife or the wife had such a husband. Va'abal nosin esaschar, and the husband pays for the price of the get. Now, Rabbi Abba tzarich sheyeh makir name. Rabbi Abba says when it says that Uvad sheyeh makirim, he has to know both of them. In other words, he has to know who they are, that this is the husband, this is the wife. Rabbi Law said, no. By the man, he has to recognize, by the get, he has to know the man. Because he's the primary, protagonist in the case of the get. He's the primary person involved. And by the receipt, he has to know the woman's name, because she's the primary person involved. But not the other ones. So it says, why? Rabbi Ambar Boy Kumi Rebbe. If Rabbi Yeruchia asks for a Rebbe, it's probably from front of Rabbi Law. Imagine, Shevi Shacheres V'Gireshba. Maybe he was going to bring another woman. It would tell you, this is his wife. How can you write again without knowing definitively there's a wife? Maybe he's going to Megarish somebody else. Now, I don't know why that's such a problem. I'm not exactly sure why I was so concerned about that. What do we get? He can divorce anyone, so it's not a valid divorce. What's the difference? So his wife doesn't think she's divorced. She's not around to get divorced. Why is it such a chashash? What kilkul is it going to cause?
About somebody else's wife. Because if other people see the get,
what are they going to think? That this woman got divorced from her husband even though she's not married? She was...
No, he can say about somebody else.
What is he going to say?
He has the same name as somebody else. And somebody else, and there's a different person.
Oh, I see. He has the same name as another husband, and he's going to be Megarish that guy's wife. No, okay, that's not a bad chashash. Okay, I can accept that. We're afraid that he's going to divorce somebody else's wife, and since he has the same name as that woman's husband, so therefore people are going to think that she's Megareshes even though she's not. So that might be the chashash. That could be. So, says the Gemara. Again, right? So he said, he answered, no, Lamaisa, if that was the case, it could be that such a chashash exists, but then in that we do require Adim to know that this is the woman who was intended when the get was written. The Adim have to say that this is the woman who was intended for. Okay? So therefore, in other words, the get can be written, even though you don't know the wife. When the get is given, it has to be given to the right wife, and then you have to have witnesses that it was given, in fact, to the right one. Okay, but the get can be written even without knowing the wife herself. Yeah.
It sounds like Edim Masira.
Right, it sounds like Edim Masira. At least they determine who the woman is. And the more immediately ask about that. Say, also Edim al-Chasumim al-Ashtar can be Shenechrei Dusim based in. The Edim al-Chasumim al-Ashtar, they're as if they're examined and based in. And therefore, if they don't know at the time who the woman is, how can later on somebody come and introduce new evidence as to who the woman is? Which is, in essence, the Gemara could have answered, well, here we're going to look at Blessed Edim Masira work. But the Gemara doesn't want to answer that, right? So the Gemara says, what? Because the Yerushalmi prefers the Shitei Chasima work. It's been consistent throughout the Yerushalmi so far. So says the Gemara, Edim cannot come once they sign again and say, we never signed it, or any star. They're not believed. Because we say that the fact that they signed, the fact that their signatures are found, is an anan sadi, it's clear to us that they were telling the truth. But here, here they're saying, we signed for this woman, not for that woman. So therefore, that they're allowed to believe that to say that this is the woman for whom we signed the get, not this woman. Okay, so I'm not sure exactly how that works. I'm still not exactly. I'm a little bit vague on that. It seems like the Edim, when the get is written, we write the get without knowledge of who the wife is. When the get is signed, the Edim have to know which woman they're signing the get for. Okay, so it's a two-stage process, and really, it's not the Edim Masira we're concerned with, as you said before, but rather that the signature, the writing the get, can be even without knowledge of who the woman is. Her husband says, "Come, write my wife again." Write my wife again. When the Eidei Chasima come, so then they have to be aware, to know who they're writing the get for, and when they can come later on testify who they wrote the get for this one, not for that one, because it doesn't contradict the original testimony. In other words, it has to be that it's something which complements the original testimony, doesn't contradict it, and it's considered to be complementary to it, not contradicting it. That's what I think the Mishnah is saying. Okay, Masisa Pliga Rabbi Abba. The Mishnah argues on Rabbi Abba. Which Rabbi Abba are you talking about? Where do we have Rabbi Abba? So it says you have to recognize both of them. It says you have to recognize both the man and the woman. Because it says, in our Mishnah, it says, because our Mishnah says, it says that they used to say over in the get, when they used to write a get, they used to be Meshana, they used to change the names, his name, her name, and his city and her city. So that would lead to all sorts of problems because they didn't know precisely what names to write. So therefore they would come about that they would change the names and not write the proper names. And that's what Gamliel made that corner, that you write Ish Plani V'chol Shem Sheyeshle in any name he has, and Ish Plani V'chol Shem Sheyeshle. So even Makira Bezet Tzarech L'Sharos Shmosim, so says, I don't understand. If you know that she's standing in front of you, how are you going to make a mistake in the names? If she's not standing in front of you, then I understand you can make a mistake in the names. But she's standing in front of you because you have to have her verify before you write the get. How are you ever going to make a mistake, right? Or if not, you don't have to stand in front of you. You just have to know her. So if you know her, how are you going to make a mistake? So it says the Gemara, is Barnash. No, there's certain people the Chachmim Chavreim Ba'apin V'lo Yadun Shma Son. There's certain people who know they're friends by face, but not by name. So therefore, we're trying to say you really have to know who his wife is, but you might not know her name. In that case, according to Rabbi Abin, you can still write the get because you know who she is and you know that he has a wife, but you can't write the get if you don't know anything about his having a wife, because then we're afraid he's going to give somebody else the get and all sorts of negative things are going to happen. Okay, says the Mora Masisa Pli Rabbi Eli. The Mishnah seems to argue on Rabbi Law. Rabbi Eli, Rabbi Law, same person. Because it says, it says you have to write so-and-so and any name that he has. Isha Plotis and so-and-so et, v'chol shem sheyesh lo, and any name that she has, because of, in order that things will be properly done. So if that's the case, it sounds here that you have to know this woman in order to know whatever name she has, right? So Masnisa, so that's the case is not like Rabbi Loka. So Rabbi Loka said you don't have to know anything about the woman. Just write the get without having knowing anything. So it says Mara Masnisa Mimagarish Baal Korcho. On a mission study about when you megarish a woman against her will. So then if she's not acquiescing to the get, if she's not consenting to the get, so therefore we have to make sure at least that she's the right person. Okay, I'm not sure exactly how that svara follows, but since when it says she's being compelled to accept the get, so we have to make sure we're compelling the right person to accept the get. It's like that effect. She does. If you megarish a woman against her will.
You said
You need her das, but against her will. You could stuff it into her hand.
no, but if she can't,
Megarish Baal Korcha. She'd be kicking and screaming, but you've compelled to accept the divorce. Okay? So, Madam Rabbi Hillel, that's what Rabbi Hillel said, that you don't have to know the wife. That's Megarish B'Ritzono. It's a guy willfully, so we assume that the get is being written for the right woman unless proven otherwise. This boy made my son wanted to say Megarish B'Komos Acher. That which you have to know the woman and recognize the woman is when you garish elsewhere, other than in in a foreign location which is not their hometown. Madam Rabbi Hillel Megarish also Mokom. It's in when the Megarish in their place, so then we assume that since he has a wife, says he has a wife, that of course, he's not going to lie because it's in his city and people are going to know. So even the Sofer doesn't know, it's sufficient that he comes and says, I have a wife, I'm going to divorce in this town. Okay, now changing topics. Well, it said before that the husband pays for the get. Kadod Dushu, there was a guy named Dushu, Achoy de Dudu Hava, who was the brother of Dudu. I don't know why we're being given these names, but Dushu was Dudu's brother. HaMeshabik to say he was divorcing his wife. Asuv the Kun Rabbanan, so the came from Rabbanan, I mean, he titen agra. They said she's got to pay for the get. Hey, wait a minute, then we know that didn't say that above that the husband pays. Rabbi Hillel B'Shem Rav Shmuel said, Mochelas Aksuvasi. You know when he pays? When she's Mochel or Ksuva. Because then he's willing for the 200 zuz that he's getting Mochel to him, he's willing to pay for the get. But where she's not being Mochel or Ksuva, then she wants a get, she better pay for the get. Okay? In fact, she pays, but we actually are marketing the materials to him because he's got to own it. So he pays, she pays, but he owns. Okay? Next halacha, halacha gimel. Ein amona, turning the page. Ein amona nifras minichse yisoimim el b'shvua. Amona wants to collect from yisoimim, has got to take an oath. The thing is that the basin they're not like making. What? Yeah, the ksuva. For the property's over, she's got to take an oath. The reason she's got to take an oath because we're afraid that maybe she abused the property and took too much, or she got during her husband's lifetime. The thing is, people don't like making amona take a shvua because they used to lie. Because they used to claim they got nothing, because they felt they got nothing from their dead husband, or his deadbeat husband, or his stinking heirs. So they would take such shvuas, even though the shvuas were shvuas sheker, because in reality they actually did get something. So therefore, Nimon Lashbis, Shimon made an alternate approach. She takes a nether to Yisrael. Kol Masharot, whatever they wanted, whatever nether they wanted to take. The Goyves to us, not about the property. Some a nether, some other nether. The Goyves to us, and then she collects the Suva. Vayidin Chesman again, Tikkun Olam. Eidim is signed on a get because of Tikkun Olam. It sounds like they're not essential, but it is better to have them there. The Hill of Tikkun Pruzbul made Tikkun Olam, and the Hills have made it Pruzbul because of Tikkun Olam. These things will be explained in Gemara. Brayishani Nishbos Sheker. Originally, they would lie in their shvuah, these Ammonais, the Kravis name, and they bury their sons. Because Bavon shvuahs, Bunny Mason. For the Avera of shvuahs, for improper shvuahs, children die. Shemet says, Lashav, he cases Menachem. On matters of falsehood, I smote your children. And therefore, they stopped making them take shvuahs. And besides that, there was icing on the cake. Shemas Nedarim Aleim, Yisrael shvuahs, they were more afraid of Nedarim than shvuahs. I'm more afraid of Nedarim. I don't know why. But women were generally more afraid of Nedarim than of Shavuos. I don't know why, but that's what it says. Okay? So there, a nether has two advantages. Avra v'nishba. Now, what if she took a Shavuot nevertheless? Even though we don't make her take a Shavuot? Rav Buddha Amar, Buddha said, nishba. She took a Shavuot. Lamaisa, she's bleeding, then she can collect on her ksuva on the basis of that Shavuot. Okay? Says Rab Amar L'Kausei. Rav said to his daughter-in-law, very funny conversation between Rav and his daughter-in-law. His daughter-in-law was obviously already a widow. He said to her, "Ilulei ta'aravatron." If not for the fact that I'm a magnanimous kind of guy, I'm generous. I feel kluste da'areshach didehu. Even the hat on your head is mine. Why? Because all property belongs to the state, and if the wife, according to him, and if the almana takes even a little bit, even clothing off of the estate, so then that's considered to come off for ksuba. Saying everything you have is really mine, because everything you have I can deduct from your ksuba. Okay?
She never had children. Apparently.
I guess not. Yeah, probably not. Or maybe these children are very little, small, something like that. Anyway, Shmuel argues. Shmuel says, Amar Zachas became Shalem. We know that. I don't remember Rav Shita from the Bavli, but Shmuel Shita is there. That the clothes she wears, those are hers. She doesn't have to give off the clothes off her back. Okay, the ksuva doesn't take into account the clothes that she's wearing. Okay? What? Yes. Masizim Sayla Shmuel is the right and not Nichse Milog. It's obviously not part of the marriage, but any other property. Yeah. Masizim Sayla Shmuel, the Bryce is the right. The Shmuel says, Ein lo b'ksus ishto, v'lo b'ksus barnabi. Has no part in his wife's clothing, nor in his children's clothing. Whatever they're wearing belongs to them. Ravuna, my name I kinus man begin. Why they make us? Yeah. No, not. Yeah, I think so. I think so, but not necessarily. There's certain cases where she only gets whatever's on her mamish. I don't remember where and when. Okay? Ravuna, my name might kinus man begin. Now, this is not necessarily why they made Zman, as the Ritbaz points out. Rather, it's why we need Eidim on the Zman on the get. Okay, it's a little bit backhanded. Why we need Eidim? In our mission says, Minei Tikkun Olam, you put Eidim on the get. What's the Tikkun Olam? It's because we need to have a time in the get. Why do we need to have a date? Why do we need to have a date in the get? Minei Maishas here because of a mice or a trap. What's happened? Maitze Berel Shenosis Basal Chos, the guy was married to his niece. Vizinas, and she was Mizaneh. When she was already married to the guy, while she was married to her uncle. So her uncle loved her, even though she was Mizaneh. And therefore, what did he do? Holach v'hiktim, so he went and predated a get, right? In order that she should be considered single at the time she was Mizaneh. Amar Mutar Shetitan Gabriya blessed that she should be judged as if she was unmarried, which there's no death penalty, as opposed to as an age where there is a death penalty. Okay, so therefore we have Eidim on the time in order that the time should not be tampered with. Because time is good, because that tells us when she was divorced. And vis-a-vis so many halachas, payro, when chilas payros, and znus, and all that. So we need to have a knowledge of when she got divorced. But besides that, we also want to know there wasn't tampered with. And for that, we put Eidim on the Zman, like it says in our Mishnah. What? No, the Eidim on the get. They testify to everything in the get. They don't have to specifically testify to Zman. Okay? Says the Gemara. Absolutely. But the other way around. When they testify on the get, that includes the Zman. It's not included in the Zman. Your English, your grammar on this. Okay. Says the Gemara further. Yeah. Maisa, it's very important to learn to speak precise English. Very important. Maisa ve'echad shohaya notzis basachotzo. Oh, we just said, sorry. Amar Rabuna said, again to the next part of our Mishnah, to Prusbul, right? Amar Rabuna, Kashisa Kumi Rabbi Yaakov Baracha. Here's the mayor's favorite Amora here, Rabbi Yaakov Baracha, right? Only he doesn't appear here with the Reish Lakish. Amar Rabuna, Kashisa Kumi Rabbi Yaakov Baracha. I had it, what time is that, 8 or 5? What's that mean? Oh. He said he made an announcement yesterday? Okay. You can sit and learn Yerushalmi with your son for a while. It's okay. We won't kick you out. Yeah, I've heard that excuse in the past. It's okay. You can sit down. It's not. You don't have to be too bright to learn Yerushalmi. Don't worry. Say it a further. Ravuna said, I had difficulty in front of Rabbi Yaakov Baracha the following question. Command or Maisis midivreim. I understand if Maiser Bisman is as the Rabbanon, so then Hillel can make a prusbul, they're going to prusbul to get around Shemitah. I know you're wondering what it has to do with Meisers, right? But in any event, but Kumban or Meisers Minatora, if you hold Meisers and it says Minatora, so Mishtar Shemitah is also Daraisa. So how can Hillel, Matkil Dvar Torah, how can Hillel make a prusbul to circumvent the halach of Shemitah's Daraisa? Rabbi Yetzer said, from the time that they were taken to captivity in Bavel, Klum niftaru el mitzvahs atliyas ba'aretz, were they not redeemed, or were they not exempted from el mitzvahs atliyas ba'aretz? Nevertheless, this is all part of the question. V'ashmeik ksafim noy ben moretz chutzlaretz. That's about the mitzvah of the land, but shmitas ksafim also applies in chutzlaretz. Even if it's not as that, why? Because it's not a mitzvah which is totally in the land, but a mitzvah which is totally in an individual's self. So if that's the case, how can you make a prusbul? It's all part of the question. How can you make prusbul b'zman hazeh? Even if you hold other mitzvahs, please baritz, even though the meiser is d'rabbanan, so Shemitah should be d'oraisa. So we just actually severed the link between meiser and Shemitah. Because even though meiser is d'rabbanan, l'chumra. Because even though meiser is d'rabbanan, but and Shemitah, let's say, is d'rabbanan, but Shemitah's ksafim, which is not contingent on the land, that should be d'oraisa. So how does prusbul work? So it says, Rabbi Yossi changed his mind and said, Zedvar Shemitah Shamot. Double language. Shemitah Shamot. When Shemitah works in Eretz Yisrael, Doraisa, Hesh Meksafim Noi Ben Baritz Ben Chutzarts Dvar Torah. Then you have Shemitah's Ksafim both in Eretz Yisrael, Chutzarts Doraisa. When Shemitah in Eretz Yisrael, like how nowadays only D'Rabbanan, Hesh Meksafim Noi Ben Baritz Ben Chutzarts. Shemitah's Ksafim, the you know that loans are canceled, is also only Midivrayim. It's only D'Rabbanan. Let's skip the parentheses. And they said above, even though the Meiser nowadays is Doraisa, the exact opposite. Until now we said, even though the Meiser is D'Rabbanan, Shemitah's Ksafim is Doraisa. But we said, no, since Shemitah B'zman is D'Rabbanan, therefore Shemitah's Ksafim is also D'Rabbanan, the cancellation of debts. Now we're saying the exact opposite. Even though the Meiser is Doraisa B'zman, which by the way we do not. Shemitah's D'Rabbanan. How so? Because Zedvar Shemitah, another drasha on Zedvar Shemitah Shamot. Rabbi Yossi Meshnei Shmitim, it's about two Shmitim, not Shemitah and Shemitah's Ksafim, not Shemitah of the land and Shemitah of debts, but Shemitah of Yovel. Shemitah and Yovel. Yovel Noe, top of Chav Beis and Alf, when Yovel is in effect, Shemitah Noegas B'divrei Torah, there's also Shemitah Midaraisa. Paska Yovelos, when there's no longer any Yovel, Noegas Shemitah B'divrei and Shemitah is only Rabbanan. Amos I Paska Yovelos, when did Yovel cease? When L'kol Yoshver, it says Yovel is for all its inhabitants. B'zman Yoshver Leah, when all of its inhabitants are upon Eretz Yisrael, the low B'zman Shagol B'silcha, not when they left it. One second. If all inhabitants were in Eretz Yisrael, but they weren't in place. Rather, Shevet, they're mixed up. Shevet Yehuda Binyamin, Shevet Binyamin Yehuda, the Binyaminites in Yehuda, and Yehudites in Binyamin. Yachli and Nev and Oeglis, you're able to apply during that time. Tam Lama L'chol Yoshvea, L'chol Yoshvea. So it could have said Yoshvea. It says L'chol Yoshvea, meaning they ought to be in place. So therefore it says, L'nim Tzeis Omer came to Golu Shevet Ruven and Golu Chatzi Shem Menashe Bolo Yevlos. So since the time of the Ghost of Sancherib, which even before that, since the time of Tiglas Pileser, who was taken the Ghost Ruven and Golu Chatzi Menashe from Ever Yarden, for that time Yevlos Dorat Doraisa, and for that time Shemitah is not Doraisa, and that was way before the Churban Bayis Rishon. Okay? You forgot?
So did they observe?
What? It really works. Yeah. Yeah.
So did they didn't observe Yovel after?
No, since they haven't observed Yovel ever again, right? Okay.
It's interesting. The Yerushalmi didn't answer the Hefker Bez and Hefker Bet to the question.
Yeah, the Yerushalmi obviously holds only works for Shemitah's D'Rabbanan. Even though the Bible is willing to count that it works for Shemitah's D'Oraisa, but the Yerushalmi here is only Shemitah D'Rabbanan. No Hefker Bez and Hefker.
Shemitah's only D'Rabbanan?
Yeah, Shemitah's only D'Rabbanan. Because it's linked to Yovel. It's a question whether the Rambam paskins like this Yerushalmi, but I think he does.
So
Right, Shemitah D'Rabbanan. D'Rabbanan is also a mitzvah. And Apikoros. The Rabbanas are also mitzvahs. You're too young to be an Apikoros. Okay. Says the Mishnah further. Halacha down. Eved Shenishma. Eved's taken to captivity. I don't know how far we'll get with this, but Eved Shenishma. And Eved's taken to captivity. Upta'u, and they redeemed him l'shem evet, for the purpose that he should remain an evet. Yishtabed, so he continues to be an evet. Let's say he's taking the evet l'shem and they redeemed for the purpose of of becoming free. Lo yishtabed, he doesn't become subservient again. Regardless, he becomes subservient again once he's redeemed. He goes back to subservience. So now the next part of the Mishnah we'll get to next week. An Eved whose master was made collateral for somebody else, and the first master released him. Right? According to the strict letter of the law, the Eved doesn't know anything, right? But because of Tiknon Kofinis Rabo, you compelled the first master, also Ben Chorin, to make him Ben Chorin, who made him a Ben Chorin, actually, to write an IOU on his value to the person who had bought him. He doesn't write such a thing, he just releases him, and the Gemara is going to explain what that sefer means. In the meantime, we go back to the ratio. Said, the truth is, when an Eved is taken into captivity, and you get him back, he shouldn't go back to being an Eved, because you're misyoish from him. Usually you give up hope of ever giving him back. And Yesh works by avodim that they should go free. So he shouldn't go back to becoming an Eved. Why they say that it goes back to being an Eved? That an Eved should not, what's the word? Flee. Flee. And there are a couple of words missing here. It should be min rabo v'yimtzar atzmo l'shvuyim. He shouldn't allow him to flee from his master and run away to captors. So it's like a gzera. So therefore we say, even though really after Yeush the Eved goes free, nevertheless the Eved remains a slave because of he shouldn't go and free himself in that manner. Our Mishnah seems to indicate this. Because our Mishnah says, Rabba Naisin is dumb of El Mashachro. His master pays his fee, whatever it costs to redeem him, and then he has to release him. Now, Lo Amar Elo Rabbo. It says quite clearly it only goes back to his master. Or Achilo doesn't go to somebody else. So it must be it's a special xer, even though he should go free, then nonetheless he goes to his master. But only to his master. The guy who buys him doesn't get him. It only goes back to his master. Meaning if somebody else buys him, his master is dead or something like that, then we would say that he would go scot-free. And Taka, no, he would not be able to go back to subservience. To the who? It goes to his kids, yeah. Yeah, you're right. If there were kids, it'd be the same thing. But if I'm saying if there is no heir, so then the Eved could not be mishtabed anymore. Okay? Says the Gemara, Rabbi Ela, B'Shem Rabbi Yasa said the exact opposite. He said, B'dinu afilu shem ben chorin yishtabed. Really, logic dictates that even if you redeem him in order to make him free, he should go back to Shibud. Now, the reason the Korban says is somehow Rabbi Elon has that there was no Yeush. I don't know why there's no Yeush. The Korban, once your Eved is taken captivity, you should be Misyoish. But that's how he learns it, that there was no Yeush. And really, even if somebody redeemed him, for the purpose of his going free, he should go back to being an Eved. Why they say that if somebody redeems him for the purpose of making him free, that he goes free? In order that people shouldn't say that really freed slaves are not freed. In other words, since he was redeemed for the purpose of freedom, there's a Mar Zion issue. If we say that he's not truly free, then people are going to say other freed slaves are not truly free. So therefore, because of Mar Zion, we say we make him free as well. Even though it's Lifnei Yeush, and he should not go free, we'd say he does go free. Okay? Rabbi Yossi said, it should be Masnisa Amra Kain. Our Mishnah says that. Because it says, Ben Kach u Ben Kach Yishtabe. It says, regardless, he goes back to being Meshuvat, no matter what the circumstances here. Just like they're required, I guess it's actually a brisa. Just like they're required to redeem free men, so too they're required to redeem slaves. And here we say that he goes back to being a slave. But it's interesting, the Benkach or Benkach, what about, maybe there was Yeush. What do you mean? Regardless of whether it's Yeush or not, it must be a special Gzeira. So it says it must be. Oh, wait a minute. You know what? I changed the Shari Torah so automatically, but I see it. I shouldn't do that because the Korban learns it's a kasha. And a taka seems to be a kasha to me, because it says here that regardless it becomes meshubad. Not that it goes ben chorin. So it seems like quite clear from this that Shingamliel holds that lifnei yeyush, the evet taka does not become a ben chorin. Even after Yerush of Shingamliel seems so it does become a ben chorin. But certainly lifnei yeyush, and therefore I'm not sure. I better leave it for now. I'm getting too nervous to think. Let's leave it for now. If there's a break between Mincha and Mar, maybe we'll learn, but I bet you there's no break here.